Hello and welcome to Bucks Podcast. I'm Anthony Danu, Terrell Drevick, Kyle McEwen. Fellas, we are back together. Great to see you guys.
Good to see you, brother.
Really good to see you. Yeah. How you doing?
Doing good. Life is wild and very busy, which is why we've kind of had a bigger hiatus. Doing some coaching, and we've Kyle's moving across the country or outside of the continental, and Terrell's got a dating life to adhere to. So, yeah, we've got a lot going on, but we're happy to be back together. How have you guys been since our last show?
More importantly, how have the Bucks been since our last show? And the Bucks have been doing really good. So, I mean, from that perspective, I'm very happy just to know that some of the early season turmoil from the Bucks has fruited, and everybody's kind of looking at things from a rosier perspective. Chris Middleton's looking healthy and keeps playing more and more minutes, overcoming hurdles. We're seeing Dame Lillard and Giannis learn how to play off each other more. Malik Beasley's been a fantastic surprise just to see how reliable he's been in his role and willing to play big minutes and not always have good touches. So it's that's been a really good thing. And then for some of the obvious changes we've already talked about too, to see the continued good play of Brook Lopez after Griffin just listened to the rest of the team and changed him more to that drop coverage again. So there's just so much to be positive about with this team right now that it's fun, and I'm excited to talk to you guys about a little bit more of the minutia around some of the stuff that's happened recently too.
Okay, so I mean, Terrell, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, if you would have said that the Bucks would be sitting at 17-7 on the season at this point in the season in December, I think we would all agree that and say that's about right. That's where we thought they would be. They'd be like in the first or second slot in the Eastern Conference. Boston's ahead of them, 19-5 right now. 76ers tied for second here in the Eastern Conference at 17-7 as well. So, yeah, we knew this team was special. You sign a player like Damian Lillard, you should be in that 1, 2, or 3 slot in the Eastern Conference. And so far, the season's playing out like how everyone thought it would be.
Well, early in the season, I think everybody had a little bit of trepidation, knowing that, okay, we added Dame Lillard. He gives us a different dimension on offense, but then we're missing out on Drew Holiday's defense, and he's helping the Celtics. So that creates more of a hurdle there in overcoming them throughout the season and getting to the championship. But I think now, after the last month or so, we're getting to a point where it's like you feel confident that they are true competitors, real championship contenders. Like, if everything falls into place and the team's healthy, which has to be true of pretty much anybody who's going to win the championship, you got to be healthy. If the Bucks are healthy, they look like championship contenders. The fact that they made it to the Eastern Conference in-season tournament final, or the semifinal of the in-season tournament against the Pacers, and with how good the Pacers have been this year, you're like, how all of this is unfolding. And then after that loss to the Pacers in the in-season tournament, for the turmoil that happened there with Bobby Portis calling out Adrian Griffin and the team as a whole for not being more prepared to really make a point to advance to the in-season tournament championship. And then in their next meetup, which came shortly thereafter, to see the Bucks trounce the Pacers, for Giannis to score a franchise record 64 points in that game, and then for all the emotion that was shown after the game in regards to the game ball situation that happened, it emboldened me. It made me feel like, yes, we've still got Giannis, the guy with that fire in his body, to lead the charge, and he's still so passionate about his achievements and what they mean historically and the moment. It's really cool to see how passionate he is, because that was one of the pointers that you saw as a young player out of Giannis, where you said, holy cow, this guy wants it. He's going to try as hard as he can to be a good player and a dominant and potential MVP. And then he he did all that and won championship for the Bucks. So I'm emboldened by what I'm seeing so far. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think especially during the regular season, the last 4 or 5 years under Coach Bud, that they've gotten a little stagnant or maybe like bored during the regular season. Right now, you've got a brand new head coach, you've got a whole new backcourt. So there's different things that they're still figuring out, and your new coach is a first-time head coach. So there's a lot that goes along with that. He's learning on the fly, but he's got a great experienced team to help him and guide him with that. I love that he's taking input from the players. The players feel like they have a say in what's going on. You talked about the fire under Giannis and the team being so like much like more competitive during games. I think playing close games as opposed to having blowouts, which we saw a lot of the last handful of years, compared to like all these close games the Bucks have played earlier in the season. Like we're seeing them in a different way and through a different lens with a different leader. But seeing that they have the competitive spirit and the fire, especially you're talking about Giannis and Bobby Portis, guys who, you know that's inside them and that they are great competitors. But to see that this early in the season, we haven't even got to Christmas Day yet, and to see how into it they are and how it matters. And you hear about Bobby Portis, talking in the locker room and trying to figure things out with coach, or a plane ride where they talk about switching their defense and taking into account what's best for Brook Lopez and what he can be and the proper way to use him. And all of these things, like to see them and the intensity, I think it also, it speaks to their situation that they're in, how their team is set up, but then also I love what the in-season tournament has given us. Like we've seen important games. The Bucks started off 5-0 in the tournament and you lost a tough one to the Pacers who had beat them twice now. In both track meet games, and this Pacers team is a incredibly fast-paced team. They're reminiscent of around 20 years ago, the 7 seconds or less Suns, but kind of giving this new fun rivalry. And the Pacers' best player is one of my favorite NBA players. Of course, him being from Oshkosh, Wisconsin doesn't hurt. But Tyrese Halliburton is just an incredible player to watch. So much fun, and to see this hopefully budding rival between the two. And the Bucks get eliminated by the Pacers, and the Bucks come back after the spirited locker room talk from Bobby Portis and how that all went. And then the drama at the end of the game and how the game ball, and I'm sure we're going to get to all that, but I love what we're getting from this team. And I think the in-season tournament really helped us get at least the feel of important games. And it feels like it's more important to the Bucks and how this rivalry might be coming about. You guys talked about the Eastern Conference earlier, like it's the Bucks, it's the Celtics, it's the Heat. Those three teams have represented the Eastern Conference so far this decade in the finals.
It is cool that the in-season tournament kind of gave the teams that were actually playing in those knockout games a taste of the playoffs, because it resulted in an early season kind of introspection for the Bucks, where you already have one of your more competitive guys and one of the longer tenured guys on the Bucks in Bobby Portis coming out and saying like, yo, what's going on here? Like if we're playing like this now, you're not going to be expecting to win in the playoffs. So that's really neat to have that perspective change early in the season to kind of focus the team going forward. And maybe we see Giannis play fewer minutes going forward because they do start knocking other teams over the head more now that they're kind of getting in a role together and figuring out how to play well as a unit with the new group and the new coach. But one of the interesting and cool aspects of Adrian Griffin being there and Giannis and that little their relationship is that Budenholzer was committed to 34 minutes or less for Giannis pretty much every single game. Whereas with Adrian Griffin, there's those conversations when Giannis is like, hey, I'm not coming out. And like, we've seen some of the conflict in that, the confrontation already. And it's beautiful to see, like, you want the passion to be shown from your players and your coaches and stuff. Like, it's a passionate game. So it's cool to see that those interactions being fiery, but then, calming down and like being able to let it flow after that stuff. So I just love that. And from a fantasy, as a guy who works in the fantasy basketball industry, I love seeing the extra minutes from Giannis, because that's what really helps build the production. And that's, you don't get 64 points in a franchise record scoring record if you're not playing a huge amount of minutes. And Budenholzer, there's just not as many opportunities available from Budenholzer now that we're seeing with from Griffin. So thanks.
Yeah, let's go back to that Pacers game. So Giannis came out of the game with 56 points. I think he was a point shy of tying the record.
This is very interesting how that all broke down in the putting him back in the game. Yeah.
And then the Pacers pretty much they waved the white flag. They put the second unit in, and that second unit went on a run, which meant that what do you do as a Bucks coach? Griffin decided to put the starters back in with about 4 minutes left of the game. And that gave Giannis a chance to get 64 points. I guess I want your opinion. Was it the right move? Did you have to stop the bleeding by putting starters back in? Or is this how you do this? Is this what you do to finish out games?
This was very interesting to me because he's got the record in his sights. He's had 55 points at least once before, and he's told Michael Redd, like, I'm gonna get your record. And I remember it. A friend of the show actually was at the game that Michael Redd set the record, 57 points against the Jazz in I think back in 2006. And Giannis has had conversations, like he had 50 plus, I think, against the Wizards. He's like, Mike Redd was at the game. He's like, I'm coming for it. And Michael Redd's like, yeah, I know. And we thought, Dame scored 70 over the last year or two. I mean, I thought maybe he's the one who's going to set the new franchise record. But you talk about Giannis getting more minutes now, Kyle, and so we're seeing more opportunities like that. So I like that it was on Giannis's mind, and he gets the record. He gets to 57. He gets to 58. So now it's his record alone. And then it's like, well, you might as well go for 60. The game is maybe close enough. And then just kind of pushing it to see how far he could go. To me, there was a little bit there where I was like, man, the Pacers, are they going to get upset about this? Like, this isn't something you usually see, like at the end of a game, one team pushing to get a points record when it seems like the other team has basically given up and, like you said, waved the white flag. So to me, it felt a little weird that he was in there, but I also, I've wanted someone to break Michael Redd's record for so long, and to have Giannis do it in such a meaningful game, in a response game to being eliminated by the Pacers a few days earlier, like that. And you saw Bobby Portis in the first half and getting thrown out of the game. Like, you saw how much this game mattered to them. So I actually really loved it. I think if this was without the in-season tournament, I don't know if we see the Bucks respond in that regard. Another, I'm a major applause for the in-season tournament for making these things more fun and important, and potentially creating a really new fun rivalry.
There you go, right there. The fact that this creates a rivalry after the loss and the response. Now it's the next game's going to be so cool to see what happens because the Pacers have a team that's built to match up pretty decently with the Bucks, especially when the Pacers stop with this Obi Toppin nonsense they're doing. But yeah, Miles Turner versus Brook Lopez, perfect. Miles Turner as just a general rim protection against Giannis, great. Good luck ultimately, but still as good of an option as you're going to have there in a lot of respects. Bruce Brown as a versatile defender out there to match up with several options for the Pacers. The fact that Tyrese Halliburton is such an efficient and good facilitator for that team is, man, there's a lot to like about that team. And I didn't even get to the fact that Buddy Hield's there to be a reliable shooter, another facilitation option, and Benedict Mathurin is at least some kind of rogue thing that you have to be aware of potentially popping off on you too.
Yes. No, I think if they can get some more bench rim protection and, like you said, maybe some different options at power forward instead of Obi Toppin.
But even you say that, they've still got Isaiah Jackson for bench rim protection. They've got Jalen Smith as front court versatility there, and defense against bigs and pseudo bigs and Giannis and stuff like that. So man, and then Jarris Walker, they haven't been using him, but that's he's someone who could really be a great defensive option for the Pacers that they uncork later this season.
So, and like I said, the teams to make the Eastern, to win the Eastern Conference and make it to the NBA Finals so far, it was the Heat, then the Bucks, then the Celtics, then the Heat again last year. So it's been Heat, Bucks, and Celtics. We've had the Sixers in that conversation as potential, potential Eastern Conference champions with the Embiid and whether it was Simmons or Harden and now Maxey. But like, are the Pacers now in that conversation? Have they jumped the Sixers in your mind? Like, where do you kind of have those teams like lined up?
You kind of
Are
look
the
at
Pacers in the conversation?
you kind of look at what makes a team dangerous. And when it comes to the 76ers, you got Maxey and you got Embiid. One of those guys, if he gets hurt or goes down, that team, they're going to struggle to find scoring. You look at the Pacers, they have a certain style of play. It's a lot of three-pointers. It's a lot of run and gun. Let's go. So to answer your question, my opinion, I say the Pacers have the edge over the Sixers right now.
Interesting. Kyle?
The Sixers are deep, though, man. Like, DeAnthony Melton's so good as their starting shooting guard. Tyrese Maxey is fighting for an all-star spot this year. If Joel Embiid's not healthy, obviously, it is what it is with the Sixers, but that's true of every team. Just assuming everybody's healthy, the East is tough. The Magic match up well with the Bucks because they've got so much size out there on the wing and stuff like that.
They've beat the Bucks, yeah.
Exactly. So, but as we're now seeing with the Orlando Magic being 16-8, that early season loss to the Bucks, when we stressed this too, when we were talking about it, wasn't as big of a deal as it seemed like. Whereas people were probably looking at it and going, "Oh, the Magic are, they're terrible." No, they're not. They're really good.
Absolutely, another up and coming team for sure.
Yeah, like the fact that the Indiana Pacers are only 13-10, it's because their offense is so good, but their defense is just not
as bad as their offense is good. Yeah.
It's a bend but don't break defense.
But again, some of that will change when they stop doing this Obi Toppin starting that power forward thing. They like the whole Obi Toppin thing because he's a great open court player, and that's what they do is they run. And that certainly helps with, Tyrese Halliburton and all that kind of stuff. But there's just so much given up from this Obi Toppin nonsense that it's going to be fun when the Pacers either make a trade for a guy like Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, as they're rumored to be going after, or some other option. Because that's looking at this Pacers team, you really do you look at it and you go, dang, man, they might only be like one player away from being true contenders. Kind of like, if they make that Rasheed Wallace trade that the Pistons made back in the day, they could easily be contenders at midseason. So
very interesting stuff. And so let's talk about the issues with the ball after the game. So in addition, we talked about Giannis getting the team record. Previously 57, he ups it by 7 points and gets to 64 for the Bucks. Single game record for points in the game. And not only that, you also had Damian Lillard passing, I believe, Kyle Korver to get top 5 3-pointers all time in that same game against the Pacers. So after the game, there's a bit of a kerfuffle over the game ball and who has it, and how this all went down. Like, after, it was honestly, as a wrestling fan, it was so reminiscent of like Monday Night Raw back in the day. And to see Giannis, running through the tunnel and everything, and then the cameras back there and security staff, and we saw other leaked footage of the Pacers saying, "No, don't give him the ball, don't give him the ball," and Miles Turner specifically trying to make sure he doesn't get the ball. There's so much to get into this. Now, were the Pacers upset that Giannis played late into the game to maybe set the record or as a statement, against the Pacers? And now we're hearing Eric Name reported on Dan Patrick yesterday that there's 3 game balls. There's the main ball, there's the backup ball, and then there's a backup to the backup ball. And which one did Giannis end up getting? And it was taken by a security guard, but then the footage goes away. We then see like Halliburton with it. And then, it disappears into the Pacers locker room. Giannis all of a sudden just sprints into the Pacers locker room, and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be a fight. Of course, Thanasis is there as well. I saw Marjan running somebody down. There's apparently the general manager of the Pacers got elbowed in the ribs by a Bucks player. There's all sorts of other stuff we're hearing from Gilbert Arenas' podcast. It's Giannis doesn't feel like he actually did get the proper game ball. He's like, I played over 35 minutes. I shot 30 plus free throws. He's like, I know what the game ball felt like, and the one I have does not feel like the game ball. So
Hilarious.
there's so much going on with this, and they're leather balls that do have to be worked in before, like they're not the synthetic stuff that we might get at where, at Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever. And so, if Giannis has an idea of how it felt, he's probably right, because these balls do have to be worked in to a certain degree. And I would also trust, how, you look at usage rate and things like that. How often does Giannis have the ball in his hands? And you add in the 32 free throws, it's a significant thing. And he feels like he did not get the right ball back from the Pacers. The reason the Pacers
I hope that's true, because
Yeah.
it means the Pacers will never win a game against Giannis ever again.
I mean, well, so he put up 54 in a game where they lost earlier to the Pacers. Then he puts up 64 just the other night. They play each other again on New Year's Day and in Milwaukee, and then again on January 3rd. So twice in 3 days, coming up in just a few weeks. To
Bet the
start off
over.
the new year.
Bet the over.
Bet the over. There you go.
But I mean, to come out and say that, oh, we wanted to get the game ball to one of our rookies who got his first 2 points in an NBA game,
And
Oscar Tshiebwe.
This is the Pacers' reason for keeping the game ball, right? Is what Rick
Yeah.
Carlisle said, their coach.
That's nonsense. That's foolish. In what world does a rookie get his only game ball, his first game ball, by scoring 2 points in a loss?
In a road game. It wasn't like it was in Indiana and they feel like, well, it's our game. Plus you win, you get the game ball. And then to throw on top of this, so we have the in-season tournament. Now, all of the in-season tournament games until the championship are considered, their stats count for regular season games. However, the championship does not, which is interesting because Oscar Tshiebwe did also make a free throw in the in-season tournament championship game against the Lakers, but technically that's its own thing statistically. Once again, a loss for the Pacers. So now this free throw that he made against the Bucks is official regular season point. So it's like he technically did score already a couple days earlier, but now this one that happened during the regular season is more important. I don't know. It's such a bizarre thing with so many tentacles.
It's a shiny object. That's all it is. Hey, we're gonna put all the eyes over on this story. Let's make it a deal, make it a thing. But in the end, do you think Giannis has the actual game ball? To me, I don't think he does. I think the Pacers kept it.
I think they did too.
I mean, who really cares, right? But the fact that he cares, that's awesome. And the fact that he thinks he doesn't have it and that they did something to take it away from him, that's awesome. Because, like you said, Anthony, this is some WWE stuff. And, yeah, kudos to the NBA for this scripting, because it is great.
And it's funny how, so this is something like the story has legs, right? And it's interesting how much it was talked about Thursday and yesterday, and even us talking about it now. And that was the same night that the Draymond Green suspension, that he was suspended indefinitely for his most recent incident, also came out. So the NBA kind of has these two stories, but the Draymond Green thing, I mean, you take that away, you also think how much bigger the ball story is going to go. But this is going to come up again in a couple weeks because they play each other in 16 days and then again a couple days later. So I don't think this is the last we've heard of this. Oh, you got a cat?
You gonna say anything?
What cat is that? Whose cat is that?
No.
Kyle's in Hawaii picking up strays.
That's my pussy.
Oh my God.
No, that's the person I'm subleasing from. They've got a cat, so it's you couldn't really see it. It's got some kind of like back hip things where it's, man, anyways, it kind of dances when it walks. It's kind of cool. But anyways, yeah, Shirley is the cat's name. Sorry, it took me a long time to get there.
That's great.
Yeah, that was my my grandma's name, so it was kind of neat. I was like,
And my grandma's name is Laverne.
oh,
There you go.
Wow, Shirley and Laverne, isn't that like a thing?
Laverne and Shirley. Yeah.
Laverne and
Laverne
Shirley.
and Shirley, that's how they say it.
Takes place in Milwaukee.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
You know, one of the,
I don't know if my grandma was ever in Milwaukee, but my grandpa grew up in Chicago.
So one of the best things, or the only good thing to come out of the Monte Ellis, Brandon Jennings era Bucks is that they superimposed Brandon Jennings and Monte Ellis over Laverne and Shirley, and did the beginning song Schlemiel, Schlemazel, Haas and Pepper Corporated. We're gonna do it. So there's this great commercial. Like I said, the only good thing that came out of that era of Brandon Jennings and Monte Ellis over Laverne and Shirley, like, you know, working at the beer factory in Milwaukee, and it's good stuff. Maybe I'll post a link to it later on our Twitter.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
This cat though, when we play cards, it's just like my grandma. We always got to bet money. It's always $1. She never lets me win. It was so weird. The cat usually is doing its own freaking thing. So I was just sitting here. The only reason I picked it up is because it came behind me and it just started staring up at me, going, meow.
Star of the show. I heard something. Yeah, I was like, "Who's crying back there?"
Yeah, it was old Shirley girl, Miss Green Eyes.
So the Bucks later today face the Pistons, who have lost 21 or 22 straight.
22 straight. Yeah. 2 and 23 on the season.
Holy cow. So hopefully no trap game. You've got the Rockets tomorrow, so a little back-to-back. No Middleton tonight. He will play against the Rockets tomorrow. And then you also have the Spurs in a few days. The Spurs just won their first game of their last 18 games. So a couple games with the Spurs and Pistons with the Rockets in the middle there. And then you've got a revenge game against the Magic. Like we said, beat the Bucks earlier in the season. The loss doesn't look so bad. Kyle, you talked about the Magic size, youth. Like they've got some players, Franz Wagner specifically, and of course Paolo as well. And then 2 games against the Bucks. I'm sorry, 2 games against the Knicks. This one is really weird, right? So I remember for years wanting the Bucks to finally get a Christmas Day game, and it's great because like 5 or 6 years in a row we've actually seen the Bucks play on Christmas Day, and it felt like it took forever for them to have a player and have a team worthy of playing on Christmas Day, because you try and put marquee games there. Mm-hmm. So you've got the Bucks.
Jesus Christ.
Did you get bit by Shirley?
She just like, anyways. What the fudge? She tried to jump up in my lap. She's never done that before. And she like clawed into my shorts on my leg and was just hanging there like off my leg. And I had a freaking tray on my lap and everything that was on the tray spilled. So I got a mess to clean up.
We can only imagine.
Fiddlesticks.
I tell you, females always seeking attention.
Dude, she's been fed. Water bowl's fine. Dry food's fine. There's nothing there for her that she needs right now. If anything, I'm the one in need. I missed out on my morning sunshine. I was supposed to be sunning my taint like 15 minutes ago. It comes right through the window here at 8:15 every morning. It's beautiful. Goes right to my butthole.
That's great.
If you're not into sun in your perineum and you're not like aware of the benefits thereof, look into it. It's a wonderful thing. Helps with manifestation too.
First heard it from the Liver King when he was talking about it. I thought it was just for clicks. It sounds like it's supposed to work. I don't know. But yeah, back to the scheduling. Looking at the schedule when they first released it, I saw that in December the Bucks have 8 home games, 6 of them in a row. You're like, man, and they have the in-season tournament in December too. If they could go on and win the in-season tournament, which we all know what happened there, and then they could go on and win 6 games in a row after that, all at home. That is such a, I don't know who made that schedule, but thank you. This could get the Bucks going even. Yeah. Like, I don't know what the word is. They'd be playing really good basketball, and they would look unstoppable.
Well, it's interesting. The final 4 of the in-season tournament were played in Vegas. So if the Bucks had not made it to the final 4, they would have been at home in Milwaukee for weeks, like basically leading up to going to New York for the 2 games in 3 days, the 23rd, and then of course Christmas Day. So we kind of get a little sneak peek, the Bucks and Knicks in New York, not just on Christmas Day, but also 2 days earlier, also a morning game, which the Bucks don't always perform their best at. But interesting, they're kind of giving a little sneak peek. It's funny, like it's the same 2 teams in the same town, but you'd rather have the Bucks win the Christmas Day one when everyone's watching, kind of just the statement and having all eyes on you, because there'll be the only game playing at that time on Christmas Day, whereas that Saturday the 23rd, not many people are really glued to their TV for that game. But yeah, love the way they're playing right now. I think they're really turning things around. I love that they've had all the tough conversations, and they continue to evolve. I still think there's potential for a trade. Pat Connaughton looks like he's coming back tonight. You've got Jay Crowder hopefully coming back over the next few weeks, adductor surgery. So that could be a big part. But I love the minutes that Andre Jackson Jr. I know he had back spasms, and there was a couple weeks where he was only playing a few minutes a game, if he was playing at all. AJ Green got some more time in there. That was also nice to see. But the energy that Andre Jackson Jr., especially defensively, plays with, and then on the offensive glass and putbacks and dunks, and hopefully his developing a 3-point shot to really get himself some meaningful court minutes, hopefully 10 to 15 a game, if they can find that spot for him. But in my opinion, he's sort of past Marjan, in my opinion, just like what he can offer the team outside of shooting. Your guys' thoughts on the Marjan versus AJJ or Ajax situation?
I don't want to sound too boring, but I like where it's at right now. I like the balance right now.
Okay. Kyle, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you. You almost don't want them to play anymore, because if they're playing more, then that means somebody's hurt. So
right, because they likely wouldn't be in your top 8 or 9 rotation guys. Because you got Portis, Connaughton, Crowder, and Cameron Payne off the bench. So that would put Marjan and Ajax at like 10 and 11. And you throw AJ Green in there as well.
Other than maybe marginalizing Connaughton in some respects, it's hard to justify looking away from other guys. Like, I could be sold on the idea that Beasley coming off the bench would be something to look at, especially as Middleton is getting healthier and more reliable as an option in the lineup for bigger minutes. If you wanted to add more defense and size to the starting lineup next to Lillard, I would understand that. And I think it's something to look at, because Beasley, as good as he's been in his role, I don't think you look at him and feel like he's the weakest link that you'd be looking to try to fill in somehow if there was a trade out there or some kind of situation where a vet gets bought out as the season goes, and the Bucks can end up season on someone amazing they weren't anticipating being available.
No, I totally agree. And just a reminder, Malik Beasley led the NBA in 3-pointers off the bench last year or the year before. So, I mean, he can do that role. And I think it would actually give him more shots. And I think that would be a role that he could actually get more points in and be more the focal point, because when he's always playing with Giannis, Lillard, Brook, and Middleton, which those lineups, their starting 5 lineups have been very good. If you look at their offensive and defensive ratings, like those are 2 great lineups. But yeah, I think moving Beasley to the bench and going with a more switchable defensive guy, they're just so offensive minded with Lillard and Beasley playing next to each other. Whereas I think if you split the two up, I think Beasley could absolutely go off, and then you get more defense in the starting lineup, and that way Lillard is covered up a bit more. And I don't know, is Jay Crowder that guy to throw in the starting lineup and move Beasley to the bench, or do you think it's a trade? The Dorian Finney-Smith, the PJ Tucker getting bought out, or something along those lines. Like, what do you guys view as reasonable? Torrey Craig, Javon Carter, I don't know.
I think more than anything, I would want like I think adding Jay Crowder, you need somebody who can chase around speedier guards still in the starting lineup that is not Damian Lillard, because so then you're not asking him to do as much on defense. But then also you can't have those expectations on Middleton or Giannis either. So like ultimately, I guess it's hard for me to imagine Jay Crowder fitting in as kind of the small forward shooting guard in that next to Middleton, or between Middleton and Lillard.
A lot of people are praising Lillard's defense against Tyrese Halliburton. So he had been setting like some records, like 2-game span of 28 plus points and 15 plus assists with 0 turnovers, and doing that like in back-to-back games, and just really being the points plus assists king with very little turnovers. In the second half on Wednesday night, this most recent game against the Pacers with the ball fiasco, in the second half of the game, Tyrese Halliburton only had 4 combined points and assists, which is wild. And people are giving Lillard a lot of credit for that. Obviously, you have the help behind you of Giannis and Brook. But there's been times this season where I haven't been as disappointed with Lillard's defense as I thought I would be. And I don't know, maybe there's something there. Maybe they're able to pull a little bit more out of him than what we've seen in the past. And he was asked to do so little defensively. And now they really do need a point of attack kind of guy.
I mean, it's easy to look at Lillard and just write him off defensively because of his size, but it's also, there's a simple narrative to look at the fact that he's never really had a great defensive center like Brook Lopez. He's never been surrounded by quality forwards like Giannis and Chris Middleton and Jay Crowder. I mean, even Jay Crowder might be one of the better forwards that would have ever been on those Blazers teams that Lillard was on, because the freaking front office always lacked in just getting a legitimate forward depth, which is hard to acquire because it's like the most useful thing in the LeBron era. You needed big forwards to be able to go out there and guard the guys like LeBron and Kawhi and so on and so forth. And that's still true today because we're going through the Giannis era. Anyways, fun to say that.
That's great. The Giannis era. Terrell, any final thoughts before we start talking to Kyle about his crystals?
Oh, I am ready for the crystals.
All right, Kyle.
Let's do it.
Kyle, what are you wearing? Kyle, who are you wearing today?
This is a moonstone crystal.
Can you show your microphone's in the way?
Oh, well, I was actually showing it to the microphone first.
Yeah, he's on crystal for sure.
These are called cage necklaces that like hold different crystals. You can switch out your crystals. Here's a big old pyrite I got. That's a nice pyrite there. Let me put the other stuff I got in my hand now.
Did you bring these to Hawaii, or did you?
I brought the pyrite here, so it's kind of glittery. You can see it glitters. It's gold. That's fool's gold, but it helps with manifesting abundance and such like that.
Pernium.
So, but this is a moonstone, and moonstones have like some clear iridescence to them. They almost look like overgrown pearls, kind of more waxy pearls. Anyways, a little bit hard to see how nice it is, but I give out these cage necklaces and crystals to random people or friends. It's a fun little way to spread magic around.
What's the most like random crystal that you gave one away, or do you have a good story about like?
My first crystal I ever bought was a malachite, and I just kind of bought it based on intuition and whatnot. I just liked it. I was like, oh, that green one looks cool. I like it. And it had this weird structure in the middle of it too, but it was only about the size of this moonstone that I've got here. And I carried this malachite around in my pocket. And then as I started to get more into the idea that crystals and whatnot could be potentially real, because if you look at it from a logical standpoint, our computers and whatnot, our phones, they're filled up with copper and quartz, which are just the crystals that and minerals that people wear around, and they say that they have benefits. And the idea is that these things do help control electromagnetic and bodily functions or whatnot. It's completely logical and like studied and practiced or tested and all this kind of stuff. So anyways, and then to see that technology also does this stuff, like crystals hold data. That's what a lot of our data storage is. It's crystals. So the interesting thing about malachite is that it holds energy. It's supposed to be an absorbing energy, and it's aligned because it's green, a green stone. It's aligned with your heart chakra, which is also green. And there's even logic that can, and science that proves the light spectrum wavelength relativity of the chakras actually being the colors that they are represented of on those spiritual posters that you'll see. So exactly, that's the response we need right now. You need to clear your gut chakra out and listen to this nonsense. But anyways, I started putting my emotions intuitively into that malachite stone, and it was just sitting in my pocket, and it would break and crack, and new cracks would form on it. And that to me was one of the early indicators to me that like our emotions and such like that, there is this connection between the crystals that we can form, or maybe it was just something I wanted to see. But regardless, it served as a tool to say whenever I wanted to not deal with any emotions that were in my heart as a Pisces water sign, I could put those emotions into the crystal, and then to see cracks develop in the crystal, it made me feel as though the emotions I were putting into the crystal were actually being put somewhere that wouldn't hurt me. And I give thanks to the crystal for its placement thereof. Thanks for letting me be weird with you guys for a minute.
That's great. This is why Giannis, we're the Best Bucks podcast.
I think what spurred that whole question from Anthony wasn't necessarily the crystal as much as talking before the show. We were talking about the fact that Giannis is a Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is a leadership fire sign. It's out there for justice and right and all that kind of stuff. So the fact that Giannis gets all fiery and passionate and whatnot, that just fits with being a Sagittarius. And the fact that he's a good leader and he thinks of other people, he knows how to temper his fire. He's more of a campfire than anything else, something to keep you warm and safe, not to burn you. But fire can still erupt when needed. And that's beautiful to see his passion out there, because it's what really sets him apart from a lot of other superstars, is you see how much he desires to win and to be a good teammate and to have the justice part of it. When he thought that he was wronged with somebody stole my ball, I wrote my name on that, it says Yanni. Oh man, I just love that stuff.
Beautiful. Terrell, any final thoughts?
Oh, and one final thought. I looked up Rick Carlisle's zodiac. He's a Scorpio. That lion, cagey, is someone who has Scorpio energy. Let me tell you. Yeah, Rick Carlisle, man, his interview after the game about that game ball, and he's like, "Oh, we weren't really thinking about, the Bucks franchise record and Giannis scoring 64 points. We were just worried about getting the game ball for Oscar, because it was his first game, his point. That's all we were thinking about was our team." And it's just like, so you weren't aware of what was going on in the game. You just admit that as a coach. No, man, he's a liar. Rick Carlisle used to coach the Pistons. If you paid attention to him, you can't trust that dude.
All right.
What's his sign?
Scorpio.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, they're always in defensive position. They're not giving you the real information. They're giving you what information they think you deserve. Trust me. Scorpio rising right here. All right, we're gonna have to do a Bucks horoscope zodiac podcast sometime soon. Okay.
I love it. Thank you everyone for joining the show. For Kyle and Terrell, I'm Anthony. We will see you soon. Go Bucks.